What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
And my name is Dave.
And this is The Deep Dive, and we are in week 2 of your series called Unsung Heroes. And what are we talking about today?
We're talking about a guy named Onesiphorus, 5 syllables.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could remember to pronounce it, Onesiphorus. But really, how long does something have to be a series? Because it's just 2 weeks.
That's true.
We were just talking.
I think 2. It's close.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
a short series, maybe.
Well, then let's talk about it.
All right, let's go. All right, so Dave, here we are, Thanksgiving week.
Yes, we are.
What is something you're thankful for this week?
What I'm thankful for my wife. I said that in church yesterday.
It
It's
was
a
super cute.
40th wedding anniversary yesterday. And so, I'm thankful for a lot of things. I'm thankful for you, Nick. I'm thankful for this church. Just thankful for my family, for my kids, and they're both doing real well. So I have a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
How about you?
Same. I have a lot to be thankful for. The girls have recently found like a really good group of friends, I think, that they're hanging out with. So I'm thankful that their families all seem to be very cool, and you know what I mean. Like they're being surrounded with good people. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the staff here, obviously, the people that I get to work side by side with every day. And thankful for you, obviously, and I don't know. There's just a lot to be thankful for. If we stop and slow down.
It's what I love about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It really is a time that I love Christmas.
Right.
And I love the meaning of Christmas in particular, and I love the other parts too, the holiday parts. But there's something about Thanksgiving that there's the travel and there's the turkey and there's the football, but it really is a time of, I think that a lot of folks reflect and realize at the end of the year that, wow, with everything else that's going on, we really have a lot to be thankful and grateful for. And so,
speaking of football, there's a different kind of football being played this weekend for
I'm
a couple
thankful for
weeks.
that.
Yeah, the World Cup. I'm excited. I was telling Boker earlier that it's just one of my favorite times because every time somebody scores, they'll shoot to a random like pub or bar or viewing party where everybody's just throwing stuff everywhere. It's great.
It really is infectious. I mean, I don't know that we have typically, although I've seen that building over maybe the last 3 or 4 World Cups, but that I think the United States has not typically got into it like the rest of the world. But it's so infectious to see how much it means for other countries. It's like, our Super Bowl or national championship or World Series or something. And so it really is a lot of fun. And U.S., I don't know if they'll get out of the first round, but
they should get out of the group stage. Who knows how far they'll go from there?
Got to go through England.
But the top 2 out of the group come. So
and
I think we're in there with Qatar and Iran. So I think we should be able to sneak through.
All right. Well, that's not the kind of football that people usually depend on us for. Georgia's 11-0.
That's true. Back-to-back undefeated SEC seasons.
We'll be 12-0 after beating Tech. Although Tech's had a couple of upsets here, but they're not going to upset Georgia.
Hopefully not.
It's going to be interesting to watch and to talk about over the next month.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been a good season. All right. Well, let's talk about Onesiphorus.
Onesiphorus.
Can you pronounce it?
Onesiphorus.
You're good. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking though yesterday, as you were saying, I was like, I wonder how many points that would be on a Scrabble board.
Yeah.
It's
a guy who desperately needs a nickname, and I'm sure he had one. Call him Ani. Onesiphorus.
I actually felt pretty bad for you yesterday because there was a sentence you said that had like 4 of these long names in it, and I was like, man, I don't know how he's doing this. So I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. Well, I had to write it out phonetically, and I still blew it. But anyway, Onesiphorus is a character that shows up mentioned only twice in the New Testament, both in the book of 2 Timothy. And so I talked a lot about the context of this because it really is important to understand, the point of the sermon, understanding the context of the time. It's another time when Paul was in prison. Surprise, surprise. He writes a lot of letters in prisons. But this one is very different. The tone of it is very different. I mean, there's a lot of it that's just Paul being typical Paul.
Right.
But there is, particularly in the way it starts, you can tell he is really low. He is in prison in Rome. He's writing to his protege, Timothy, who's been through a lot. Paul knows it's towards the end of his life. There's just too many things going on. This is like 64, 65 AD is when they say this is dated. Nero was right in the big part of his power then. I think Rome was burnt in 65 AD. So right about this time, very dangerous time for Christians, very dangerous time to be a Christian. And he's in jail for this.
Right.
And so he writes back and he talks about how lonely he is. He talks about how some people have deserted him, people that he had trusted and been part of, shoulder to shoulder ministry with. It's just sort of skipped out. And so then then he talks about this guy Onesiphorus who came and refreshed him, often refreshed him. And so, and it also says, let me just read a little bit about it. It says, from 2 Timothy 1, 16 through 18. He says, may the Lord grant mercy to the household of Onesiphorus, because he often refreshed me and was not ashamed of my chain. Others were. When he arrived in Rome, he eagerly searched for me and found me. And this wasn't like, we're trying to find somebody in, Canton, where, Nick Boker lives, in that address. I mean, it's not something casual. Asking questions about Paul would have been dangerous, would have put your life in danger. But yet he did it, and he goes and he's with Paul, and he encourages and refreshes him. And, it's just a beautiful, I think, story of friendship and encouragement, and his life is one that we should be imitating. Is like going to people when they're in distress, when they're in trouble, not abandoning them during their time of need, and going and being a person that that brings refreshment to people. And sometimes we think of refreshment like having a Coke or a refreshment, but no, we're talking about sort of a deep refreshment, like when. And you probably have had experience where you just been having a bad day, and then you run into somebody, some friend who just lifted your spirits.
Yeah.
You got to throw around there.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a particular day of story, but I would say my friend Chris is like that. He's a guy that I've been friends with since literally kindergarten. I met him on the first day of kindergarten, and we've been friends ever since. I joke with him, that we've been friends now for 32 years. That shows how old we really are at this point.
You're
But
I just had my 40th wedding anniversary. So, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, you feel older because you're like, how much of life have we done together? But he's one of those guys that I've done ups and downs with, and for his life and my life. But every time I see him, it's just refreshing. It just feels like family. It feels like brother. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about this, particularly in the case of Onesiphorus going to see Paul during a dangerous time, not ashamed of his chain.
Yeah.
And I thought of another story, and I'll try to disguise it a little bit. But a friend of ours, that a group of us, got into some trouble to the point that he was going to have to surrender his credential, and it was also going to cost him his marriage. Another friend of mine went to where he was when this was happening to him with his truck parked outside. And when he, was over, he said, hey, I'm here for you. Come on, you're staying at my house. Let's go. It's just sort of, that is a friend that is there in good times and bad times, where a lot of people might have, kind of stayed away in that situation. And, that guy's been a friend to me as well. And I'm very proud. I want to be that kind of friend.
Yeah.
I would like to think that I would do that as well. I'm not so sure, but seeing the example of some other person doing it makes me say, that is what friendship is, to be there for people when they're at their worst day.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what Onesiphorus was during that time. It's interesting. I meant to say this yesterday, but I didn't. The name Onesiphorus literally means bringing profit. Bringing profit, which is, and that's why I did that whole thing about withdrawals and making deposits, that every day we kind of have this decision that we can either be making a deposit into somebody's life, or we're going to be making a withdrawal in their lives. And we know that there are people that do that with us as well. You just see them coming, like a big withdrawal is about to take place. But to be the kind of person that are investing and making deposits into people's life. I think it's kind of cool.
And I think that's kind of the balance. I appreciated yesterday that you brought up, kind of being there for people and how sometimes, when somebody's going through a hard time, sometimes we have a tendency to more back up and give them space as opposed to like jump into it with them and say like, hey, I'm actually here for you.
Yeah.
What do you need? If you need to be left alone, how can I clear out everything else in your world for you so you can do that? You know what I mean? Like some of those spaces. So
yeah, why do you think that is though? I guess maybe we think we're going to say the wrong thing, but it is kind of a human nature when somebody's going through something sometimes. I've heard of friends who've had cancer, and they say they go to a party or come to church or something, and they said it's like parting of the Red Sea. Like everybody just sees them coming and sort of goes the other direction. And I've never been through that, but that's got to feel horrible. And I wonder why we have this sort of human nature to do that, or some people do.
Yeah, I don't know actually, because I like to think that I'm one of those people that would jump into stuff, but I think sometimes we have that tendency to kind of look a little. I'm not sure if the word's selfish, but we kind of look at ourselves and go, "Do I have time or the energy to deposit or give of myself in this space as well?" Because a lot of us are going through stuff ourselves. So to dive into somebody else's stuff, and no matter how heavy, sometimes it kind of feels like, oh, this is gonna be way too overwhelming.
Okay, so I see that. We just like I got enough drama in my life. I don't really know if I can take on this, and so that does have a tinge of selfishness to it.
Yeah,
I tend to think also that people don't know what to say.
I think that's for sure.
They don't know what to say, and they're afraid they're going to say something that's going to make it worse.
Yeah.
And so, when in seminary, in pastoral counseling and stuff, they talked a lot about the ministry of presence. Mm-hmm. And I remember when actually just up here a few miles away, Holly Springs United Methodist Church. When I was a student at Candler in seminary, that was my student appointment. I was there as the pastor many years ago, I guess it was less than 32 years ago, but many years ago. And like the first week that I was there, a church member's son committed suicide. It was terrible, and I'm driving to their house, and I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea what to do. I have not had that class yet. I have no idea, what I'm supposed to say, how I'm supposed to be. But I did remember this about just showing up, just the ministry of presence. And that's really about all you can. And it does mean so much to me. I thought back in my life when my little brother was killed in a car wreck when I was young. And that night, in the middle of the night, the preacher showed up like 4:30 in the morning when he found out. He came, he sat at our doorstep. I don't even think anything he said, but he was there. And I've thought about that many times in my ministry it is just the ministry of showing up because of what it represents. It represents the church. It represents God being with you. And it really isn't anything you're not going to be able to make it better. You're not going to be able to give them some sort of, spiritual phrase that's going to make it all go away, but just being there.
And I think that's important to remember is, I agree with you. I think sometimes we don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or make it worse, but I think we need to understand how powerful being present is.
Yeah.
Just showing up at a place and giving a hug and just, not even saying anything more than I'm sorry or hearing them out. I think that's one thing I love about Stephen Ministry is they often say that more so than like counselors or anything, they're just active listeners.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's a lot of the training is just how to be an active listener.
Yeah. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think less of I think more of us need to know how to be an active listener more so than what am I going to say to try to make this all better or something like that.
So what do you do when you're having a real bad day? Because I'm thinking about this for myself too, but to have a person who will listen to you, because I know oftentimes when I'm going stuff, I'll keep it to myself because I just don't want to burden the other person, but yet I don't think that's healthy either. So,
this could actually take up a whole podcast because I I go through seasons of life when it comes to how I guess, worked through things because, you know, just recently, I say recently, I've been married, within the last 3 years, and before that, I was single until 30, 32, 33. And so I just dealt with it myself.
Yeah.
Like me, I would, recluse to my room or my house or whatever, and I would just deal with it,
Yeah.
whatever that looked like. And maybe some ways were healthier than others or whatever. But I think now that I've been married, I'm learning to face things before they become issues more so. And
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to have Rachel who will work through some of that stuff with me and all that stuff. But I I'm finding more now that I need to have places to release bad days or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, but I also put some stuff into my days to help me decompress so it doesn't get as big. Do you know what I mean? Like, I take some time to be quiet. I take some time to zone out and play video games or something like I take times and then it kind of goes away for a little while.
I think there's this emotional balance, maybe. That part of it is something that, with God's help,
Yeah.
and we spend time with God to sort of process where we are. A lot there's some people that I think are just too quick to like share everything that's happening to them, and so, but they're hurting too.
Sure.
But I think in our own lives there is this need, and I think that's part of just the community of Christ is that the need to be able to share, to attend to one another. I think that's the communion part of life is to share one another's burdens. And there's a scripture that says that somewhere, bear one another's burdens. And I think being able, wherever somebody is, wherever they are in their emotional maturity, to be the church, to be Christ with them.
And it's hard to go through things alone. So when you have a good friend or when you have a spouse or somebody that you can walk through, or just somebody who's like, I can be there for you, like a Stephen minister, like it feels good to have somebody that kind of can help pick up the reins and walk with you and pull with you a little bit, just to say like, here, I'm helping take the pressure off a bit. So,
right. Well, and just listening,
yeah,
being an active listener, being another human being who cares. I care about you, so just sometimes just letting people talk it out.
And sometimes that's also just doing like a random act of kindness for somebody. Something I'll give like a Rachel credit for is, when something happens, she's the first person to just pick up a phone and be like, hey, I just sent you a pizza. Don't worry about dinner tonight. You know what I mean? So that it just clears their brain so they can take at least something off their mind.
That's so great.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it kind of points to another point I made in the sermon, and it's just some work that John Gottman and Robert Levinson did, and just like the effect of negativity in our lives, they were primarily, their work was with relationships with couples and that sort of thing. So I need to give that caveat, but I think it has a broader application as well. But that, like, for every one negative encounter, it takes really 5 to balance it. And so, when you think about it in like a couple relationship, you have to be careful with your words, because words hurt, words sting, and those sort of encounters. It takes some work to make that up. But I think it's, in the broader sense in life. I watch my wife. We'll go to the restaurant. She is just always like, to the wait staff, it's like, you are doing such a great job. Oh, wow, this is so fantastic. And so it's just a lovely thing to watch,
right?
Because I know that's countering some other negative feedback they've had, because people can be pretty cruel sometimes to those kind of workers. So
it's amazing. I remember I was hanging out with a group of friends one time, and we went to like the grocery store or something like that to get, I think we were getting snacks to go to a movie or something. Like, we were going to sneak it in because it's 5 times cheaper to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry for all those who thought more highly of me than that. But we were checking out, and we just made some like fun jokes. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we were just helping the person, and the cashier was like smiling and laughing and all this stuff. And they look at us and go, "Hey, thanks for making my day a little brighter." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it was like, man, I'm sure they've had some really tough. Like, I always try to be as pleasant as possible to people in the service industry and stuff
Yeah.
like that because, I'm sure they get a bunch of crap.
They do. Particularly, I think it's gotten worse. I think
Yeah.
people. I think because they're not properly venting what they're going through. I'm not doubting at all that everybody has gone through a really difficult season.
Yeah.
And so, if that's not properly processed through, I think, time alone, through being able to find whether it's sometimes maybe even with a counselor,
Yeah.
but certainly having a friend who will, if we're not properly processing, it comes out somewhere. If
In weird
road rage
places.
or like, suddenly, we talked about it last week, or a couple of weeks ago, I remember like just coming unglued on somebody at my daughter's driving school one time.
Yeah.
And it was just ridiculous. It was in the Emotion series. And it was just like, where did that come from?
Right.
And so, as much as we might like to think we're in control, we all have some way, somehow, that we are processing the stress and the negativity and the sadness and grief and all the rest within our own lives.
Well, with this idea of this like negativity to positivity ratio, I feel like I see that happen a lot when somebody has a friend that's negative or when people are in seasons of just being overly negative and how much of it has an impact on the person they're dealing with. Or, I've had a couple friends who got super negative and like, I start feeling more negative. I start taking that on as well, as opposed to like, wanting to remain positive and hopeful and stuff like that. I think we kind of get into those seasons and I think really we are kind of like those sponges. What we're taking in is what we're going to put out as well.
Have you ever been around somebody and like you knew that they were that kind of person? And because I can remember doing this several times where I am just not going to go there with them. I am going to be positive regardless of where they go. And it's really hard because like there's something about us that wants to connect with the other person. So they've said 20 negative things and go like, well, yeah, I think that was a really bad thing. Why did they do that?
Yeah.
When it can loop us down. But by the other side of that is I do think that positivity and optimism and hope and all those things can also be
Yes,
contagious.
infectious.
Yeah, right, infectious.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. And so I just think in the Christian life, I mean, it is not to be Pollyannish at all, but I do think there are proper ways of addressing things that need to be addressed and not just having kind of an emotional, moment, but to to address it in a proper way that dignifies, gives dignity to the other person that if you have a conflict with or whatever, or gives grace to yourself or whatever, Anyway, can you think, just as we're sort of kind of winding it down here, of ways, just some practical ways, maybe this week, this day, that we can refresh others? What's some ways that you might think about?
I simply think the positivity and helping people remain positive in circumstances is refreshing. I know in my world, having those people that I can go to, that's just like, hey, you got this.
Yeah.
Like, don't stress too hard. You know what I mean? Like you can do this. Those people who I consider like are your cheerleaders or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I think being that for people, I think the more we can stay positive and hopeful, the better it's going to end up.
Yeah, I think also, particularly as we think about children,
Yeah.
sometimes they can be sort of overlooked or walked past. But I think really investing in, if we're going to make a deposit into the children, is there little psyches are being formed, to help them with their self-confidence and stuff to, really, brag on them and love on them and, help them see.
And take advantage when they're giving you stuff. My little family, our evenings are starting to change as they're getting older, and my oldest tends to want to go to bed a little earlier so that she can maybe watch a little TV before she like totally shuts down. But my youngest is like, oh, well, the older sister's gone. I want to cuddle and hang out with you guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so she'll grab us and taking advantage and saying like, it's a good opportunity to find out what's going on in your day. How can
Yeah.
I invest into you? You know, sometimes it's playing games with her. Sometimes it's just talking to her. Sometimes it's literally cuddling with her and watching a show or something. You know what I mean? Like, but taking advantage of this space. So I'm glad you said that.
That's right. Yeah, I think it is, and I think with everyone too. You know, I tried. I got to do better, but you know, I'm getting better at that. I'm trying to do that. Catch somebody doing something good, and you know, and sometimes maybe just not doing anything. I'll just say like, hey, you know, I really like you. I really appreciate you as a friend, and you know, you're a blessing to me. So thanks.
Yeah.
I think that helps. Particularly, that's maybe a good thing for Thanksgiving. I think it's a time that we can have a day to thank people. You know, it always feels good.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great challenge. You know, if there's somebody in your world that's you're like, man, I wish I told them thank you more, or I wish I told them how much they meant to me more. Like, take time this week and give them a phone call, send them a text message, drop a letter, whatever, and just say, hey, I appreciate you. You know, I think sometimes we need to be told that.
Yeah, we a church member after one of the services yesterday came up to me and was telling me a story that somebody just this past week had called him and recounted something from I think like 30 years ago.
Oh, wow.
That had meant a whole lot to them. And it just, and this is a guy's going through some stuff right now, and it just meant a whole lot to him.
Yeah.
You know, and it just takes a little effort on our part when we, just ask God to lead us and open up and say, you know, that teacher back in 8th grade, she really believed on me, and she let me turn my assignment in late and didn't count off, and because she knew this had happened, and that meant a lot. And because you never know how those kind of words of encouragement are going to refresh people. Maybe like Paul needed to be refreshed. You look at Paul as like this guy who's got it all together. You know, he is Teflon. Nothing's ever going to affect him, but it was affecting him, and he was at his wit's end, I think, there. And Onesiphorus traveled, as I said yesterday. If you look at a map and how he would have had to get there, my little research on it, it was like 850 miles that he had to travel to go be with Paul. So that's pretty incredible.
That is pretty incredible. Pretty
courageous, yeah.
I think that's about our time right there. We're getting close to that 30-minute mark, and as we're getting into that Thanksgiving, tell somebody you appreciate them. Tell people what you're thankful for.
Yeah.
Or if nothing else, take time to think about what are the things that you're truly thankful for in your day-to-day life. I think those are important steps that we can do. Some practical things we can do to just experience the season. And we hope that you have the best turkey and dressing or stuffing for some of those people that you can have over this break. And if you have any questions about what we talked about or what we're doing, just shoot us an email at the deepdive@hickoryflat.org. You can also drop a comment in the videos as they're posted. We do check those, and it's always fun to kind of see what y'all are saying and all that good stuff. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And is there anything else you want to add, Dave?
Yeah. Well, we're starting into the season of Advent this coming Sunday, and it's going to be a glorious season, and the theme of Advent here at Hickory Flat is come home for Christmas. And I know we're traveling through the season of Advent to Christmas, but it is a time, and maybe you're someone who just happened upon this and you haven't been to church for a while. There's something about, I think, being together, worshiping, that is just amazing and important. And so consider this an invitation. Come home for Christmas. So have a great Thanksgiving, though, everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have
safe
a great
travels if you're traveling, and we'll see you
Watch
Sunday.
some football, whether soccer or football.
Right.
All right, guys. Y'all take care.
And God bless everybody.